Truth.
I'm not sure how else to say this, but 15,000 people just cleaned an entire country. Yeah, a whole country. In a week. They didn't have funding, they didn't have a strategy deck. Most of them didn't even have proper tools. They just showed up and did it. No one told them to, no one paid them. There wasn't some big campaign or viral video that sparked it. It started with a guy. The president, actually. He walked outside, picked up a broom, and started sweeping. That's it, no speech, no press, just cleaning. I know that sounds simple, maybe even underwhelming, but think about it. When was the last time you saw a leader in this country doing something like that? Not to promote a bill, not for the camera, just because it needed to be done? Yeah, me neither. But in Burkina Faso, people saw him. No security guards, no fanfare, just a guy doing the work, and they got it. They got what he was trying to say without him saying anything, so they joined in. Some showed up with brooms, some with buckets. Some just came with their hands and figured it out as they went. No official schedule, no checklist, just neighbors getting together and saying, "All right, let's fix this." And maybe that's the part that hits hardest. They didn't wait for a plan, they didn't wait for permission, they didn't wait at all. At first, it was just a few folks. Someone cleaning in front of their home. Another clearing a dusty sidewalk with an old broom. Nothing organized, nothing official, but something shifted. You know that feeling when people stop waiting to be told what to do and just start doing it? That's what happened. They didn't form a committee. No one asked for volunteers. People just looked around, saw what needed fixing, and got to it. Neighborhood by neighborhood, block by block. With whatever they had, shovels, buckets, hands, it wasn't perfect. But it was real, there was no blueprint. One group cleaned a market. Another cleared trash from a schoolyard. Over in a small town, farmers dug out a flooded drainage canal that'd been blocked for years. Nobody was watching, and that made it better, because they weren't performing. They were owning it. In America, we talk a lot about community. We write it on banners. We put it in mission statements. But when was the last time we made it feel this literal? What if community didn't need permission, just initiative? By the third day, this thing had spread across the country, not because of a press release, because people saw someone doing it and thought, I can do that too. That's how it moves, not through rules, through example. It wasn't abstract. This wasn't about vibes or values or vision statements. It was trash, actual trash. And it was gone, whole streets that had been buried in waste now walkable. Schoolyards once dusty and ignored were clean enough for kids to run through barefoot. And they did. People started repainting faded walls, fixing broken benches, clearing weeds that had been there so long no one remembered when they showed up. It wasn't some cute makeover, it was a reset. In one town, classes that used to feel like punishment started to feel like places people wanted to be. Teachers swept floors. Students wiped down desks. Parents stopped by after work just to lend a hand. Nobody asked them to, nobody paid them. They just wanted to see their kids' classroom not look like a storage closet. In the US, we ask why students don't care about school. But maybe we should start by asking, do the adults look like they care either? Clinics changed too. And I'm not talking about medical training or equipment. I'm talking about walking into a health center and not smelling decay. Nurses scrubbed courtyards. Patients helped clean waiting areas. Old plastic bags, food wrappers, and who knows what finally disappeared. One nurse said this kind of casually. We had fewer people come in with stomach problems this week. Might just be the clean water. It wasn't backed by a study, but it didn't need to be, because everyone could see it. Sometimes the data is right in front of you. You just have to stop stepping over it. On paper, sure, it's a cleanup. People picked up trash, swept sidewalks, wiped down old walls. Simple stuff, right? But if you've ever lived in a place that felt neglected, where the streetlights stay broken, the trash keeps piling up, and no one seems to care, you know this wasn't about trash. It was about ownership. This was thousands of people in one of the world's poorest countries saying, I live here, I'm not waiting anymore. And that's the shift that matters. Because when you go from saying, this isn't my job to this is my home, and everything else starts to change too. In America, we've gotten really good at describing problems, not so great at doing anything about them. We file reports, we debate on neighborhood forums, we complain about what the city should do, what the government failed to do. But let me ask you something. When's the last time you cleaned the sidewalk outside your building? Not because it was your job, but because it was yours. That's what this cleanup was. Not a policy, not a protest. A collective decision that this is ours and we'll take care of it. And maybe it's that sense of ownership we're missing. Because without it, everything feels like someone else's responsibility. Your school, the district's problem, your street. The city's problem, your neighborhood, just temporary, you'll move soon anyway, right? But in Burkina Faso, people didn't wait for systems to fix what they already had the power to change. They didn't need permission. They needed purpose. One woman said something that stuck with me. No one's coming. That's not sad, that's freedom. Think about that for a second. We grow up in the US believing progress comes from above. A better mayor, a new policy, a budget increase. But maybe we've been looking up so long we forgot to look around. What if change didn't start with leadership, but with ownership? You'd think something like this fades, right? People get excited, they show up, clean up for a week, feel good about themselves, and then it dies out. But that's not what happened. Something stuck. In town after town, people didn't just go home and forget. They started organizing their own cleanup days, no orders, no funding, no press. Just a bunch of folks deciding, let's do it again next month. Some neighborhoods made it weekly. A few schools added cleanup time into their Friday routine. Vendors at a local market formed their own sanitation team. They took turns quietly, consistently, keeping their space clean. Not for credit, just because it felt right. And that's how culture forms, not with fireworks, not with campaigns, with repetition. The US loves big launches, we're great at starting things. Grand openings, big reveals, pilot programs. But we're terrible at keeping them going once the buzz fades. Because we tie meaning to momentum, not maintenance. In Burkina Faso, they flipped that. They didn't call it a revolution. They didn't even name it at first. They just kept doing it until it became normal. And that's the whole point. The goal wasn't to inspire the world. It was to change what normal looked like for them. You walk past a clean street enough times and you start believing that's how it should always be. You walk past your neighbors sweeping it and you think, maybe I should help too. That's the power of example. Quiet, constant, contagious. One guy said something that stuck with me. We used to think clean streets were a luxury. Now dirty ones feel wrong. That's not a cleanup, that's a mindset shift. Imagine if that happened here. If trash on your block wasn't just how it is, but something you actually felt bothered enough to change. And not because the city made you, because you saw the person next to you caring and decided to care too. Let's be honest, this isn't just a story about a country cleaning up its streets. It's a mirror. Because while 15,000 people were out there cleaning with their bare hands, a lot of us over here are still waiting for someone to come clean up after us. We've convinced ourselves that change only happens when there's a plan, a budget, and a dozen approval meetings. But look around. Has all that planning really fixed much? We say we want better neighborhoods. But most of us don't know our neighbors. We want safer, cleaner cities, but we won't pick up a piece of trash unless it's literally in our way. And even then, maybe not. That's not judgment, that's just the truth. And I say we because I'm in this too. Somewhere along the way, we outsourced everything, even the stuff that used to be ours. We don't just outsource cleaning, we outsource connection, we outsource care. We tell ourselves, that's not my job. Someone's getting paid for that. But here's the kicker, half the time no one is. Meanwhile, we walk through spaces that feel abandoned. Not because they are, but because we all quietly decided to stop caring out loud. Burkina Faso didn't have money, didn't have experts, but they had that one thing we keep losing, shared responsibility. That unspoken agreement that says, I live here, so I'll take care of it, even if no one else does. We used to have that here too. Talk to older folks and they'll tell you stories, neighbors fixing each other's fences, kids sweeping stoops, block parties that weren't sponsored, just earned. Now, we argue about whose job it is to fix a pothole on Twitter. The truth is no system, no budget, no election can fix what we've stopped believing we own. So what does this cleanup in Burkina Faso say about us? It says we still believe someone else is coming to save the day. They didn't, and they're better off for it. Let's say we tried it, not as a program, not as a challenge, not as a trend, just as something worth doing. What would happen if next Saturday 5 people on your block showed up with trash bags and gloves, no permits, no hashtags? Just quiet action. Would people laugh, ignore it, or maybe start helping? We think Americans won't join unless there's an app, a sign-up sheet, or a slice of pizza. But what if we're wrong? What if people are just waiting for a reason and someone brave enough to go first? We don't need 15,000 people. We don't need a president with a broom. We need 5 neighbors who still believe their block is worth sweeping. And honestly, maybe we don't even need 5. Maybe 1 is enough to start something. You've seen what it looks like when people stop waiting. It's not glamorous, it's not efficient, but it works, and it stays. So here's the question I'm stuck with, and maybe you are too. If they can do it with nothing, what's really stopping us? This was never really about trash. Yeah, that's what it looked like. That's what the brooms were for, the buckets, the gloves. But what they were really sweeping away was the idea that someone else should always fix it. Because underneath the garbage, there's something heavier. That quiet belief that this place doesn't matter. That we don't matter. And once you believe that, you stop trying. You stop noticing the small stuff. You stop expecting anything better. But what if the act of cleaning, of picking up what everyone else steps over, is actually how that belief starts to crack? What if a broom isn't just for clearing the street, but for clearing that voice in your head that says, why bother? Well, that's what 15,000 people did. They didn't just tidy up Burkina Faso, they took ownership of it. And in doing that, they gave themselves something we all want. A sense that this is ours, that we live here. That it's worth taking care of. And maybe that's where the real hope is. Not in the big moves, but in the small ones repeated enough times that they stop feeling optional. 1 broom, 1 person, 1 block. That's all it takes to change the tone of a place. Not forever, not perfectly, but enough. So no, this wasn't just about cleaning. It was about proving that people, when given nothing but their own hands and a reason, can still change the space around them. And once they believe that, they don't stop. You don't need to organize a movement. You just need to believe your space is worth the effort. Then prove it 1 act at a time. And the rest, it follows.